Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're literally handing you a brand new analytical lens to decode the hidden systems of power that surround us every single day. Think of it kind of like putting on a pair of X-ray glasses. Suddenly, you're not just looking at the normal, everyday rules of your school, your workplace, or society. Instead, you're seeing the invisible structures of command and obedience that hold the whole shebang together. Have you ever wondered why we just accept certain authority figures without question? Like, we naturally listen to a teacher in a classroom, right? But if a bossy classmate suddenly tried to assign us a ton of homework, there's absolutely no way we'd go along with it. We'd rebel instantly. We instinctively know when a hierarchy crosses the line from necessary to oppressive. Well, today, we're going to define exactly why that happens. Okay, let's dive into our roadmap to crack this code. We're going to cover spotting illegitimate hierarchies, elites versus subordinates, the triad of control, a web of power, and finally, the grammar of domination. Section 1. Spotting illegitimate hierarchies, the rule of 3 test. Let's look at how we can actually test if a system of power is justified or if it needs to be dismantled. Remember, every hierarchy is assumed illegitimate by default until proven otherwise. So, here is your pop quiz checklist for legitimate authority. The burden of proof is always on the person in charge to prove their power is 1. Temporary, 2. Tied to a specific situation, and 3. Beneficial only to the subordinate. Think of a lifeguard at a swimming pool. Their authority over you is situational. It only exists at the pool. It's temporal. It's only while you're swimming. And it's entirely beneficial to you, right? Because they keep you from drowning. That right there is legitimate power. Let's look at another everyday example that brilliantly illustrates the difference. A father holding a child's hand to cross a busy road is temporary, situational, and saves a life. Totally legitimate. But what if that same father dictates the child's lifelong career path? Well, that violates the rule of 3. It's not temporary, it's definitely not situational, and honestly, it loses all legitimacy. If a power structure fails this test, the source material argues it should be dismantled. Moving on to Section 2. Elites versus subordinates, fluid roles, not fixed identities. Now that we know how to spot illegitimate power, let's examine the actual players involved. These might sound like intense academic words, but they're really just describing relational roles. The elite is basically the person gathering and accumulating power, and the subordinate is the object upon whom this power is exercised. Think of a school group project. The student who takes charge of the whole presentation acts as the elite, even if they're just assigning you formatting work, while the group members, following their instructions, are the subordinates in that specific relation. But here's the crucial point. You aren't permanently stuck as one or the other. These are incredibly fluid relational roles. For example, you might be dominated by a strict coach at track practice, making you a subordinate. But later, that exact same day, as the president of the debate club, you hold power over the junior members, acting as an elite. Because these roles shift around so much, the solution isn't about eliminating specific people, it's about transforming the underlying relationships between them. The thing is, elites don't really want those relations transformed. To prevent that, they maintain the structure through something called incohesion engineering. Imagine a teacher grading on a brutally strict curve, where only 2 students can get an A. Instead of the class uniting to complain about an unfair test, the students start competing horizontally against each other. By dividing subordinates, whether by status, race, gender, or just pure competition, elites ensure that we fight each other horizontally rather than fighting the power vertically. It's a real game changer when you notice it. Section 3. The triad of control, the mechanics of obedience. Now, let's put on our detective hats and explore exactly how these hierarchies engineer such durable, long-lasting obedience. The first leg of this triadic model is dependency. This forces compliance simply because you desperately need access to the resources the elite controls. If someone controls what you need, like a university controlling the degree you need to get your dream job, obeying their endless curriculum requirements doesn't mean you're weak. It's actually a completely rational strategy to preserve your well-being and social position. Think about the systems around you. Modern hierarchies control what we call the nodes of life. First, there are survival nodes, like shelter, food, healthcare, and education. But it goes deeper than that. They also control flourishing nodes, like needing the popular group at school for a sense of belonging, status, and respect. And finally, luxury nodes, which cover convenience and comfort. By controlling your survival, your status, and your comforts, depending on the hierarchy starts to feel like a basic, unavoidable necessity. The second leg of the triad operates at the exact same time, and it's called manufactured consent. This is the internalized justification of authority, using media, education, and culture to create a sort of false consciousness. It's like being convinced that standardized test scores are the ultimate, natural measure of human intelligence, just because the school system tells you they are. Before you know it, we start believing the rules are actually just natural laws of the universe. This idea perfectly captures what's called a hierarchical mentality. We're trained to instinctively rank importance vertically and completely misinterpret interdependence as dominance. Take the saying about the lion being the king of the jungle, while the goat that sustains it is totally undervalued. The lion isn't actually a king, right? It relies completely on its prey to survive. Yet we tell stories where the lion is royal and the goat is just food. We naturalize human hierarchies the exact same way. And finally, the third leg is coercion. This sits just beneath the surface as a latent, layered enforcement mechanism. It uses threats, surveillance, economic sanctions, or even open violence whenever dependency or consent start to weaken. If you suddenly stop caring about popularity, or you realize the rules are totally made up, the hierarchy brings out the detentions, the bad grades, or the threat of getting fired to force you right back into line. Section 4. A web of power. Cross-hierarchy interplay. We have to realize that no hierarchy exists in a vacuum. They all interact to create a massive web of power. Often, these systems are deeply symbiotic. They feed off each other like a giant interlocking machine, where economic, political, patriarchal, and nationalist ideologies all lock together. Think of it like a campus ecosystem. The wealthy alumni fund the administration makes rules to favor those alumni, and campus traditions keep the students in line to keep the whole machine running smoothly. They reinforce overall control. However, they aren't perfect. Sometimes these structures actually contradict each other. For instance, market forces might erode traditional religious structures. This creates structural fault lines. Think of it like when the rules of the student council completely contradict the rules set by the school administration. It creates a loophole. These contradictions give subordinates strategic weak points to push back against the overarching system. Section 5. The grammar of domination. Decoding the patterns. Let's decode the overarching language, or the grammar of how this domination plays out across all systems. When you look closely, you see a massive structural contradiction at the heart of our world. The elite gets to be the active subject who defines the norms and creates meaning. Meanwhile, the subordinate is treated as a passive object, constantly measured by those exact same norms. The elite retains their unique individuality, while subordinates are expected to adopt the elite's meaning and blur into a faceless mass category. This grammar of domination operates as a cultural, traditional, and psychological system. It is so deeply ingrained through our folklore and traditions that fear of disobedience transforms into a psychological habit. Think about how you might instinctively raise your hand to speak in a room, even when no one is officially in charge. Submission becomes an internalized reflex, and the hierarchy just feels like basic common sense passed down across generations. So, how do we actually break free from this? Well, according to the framework, we can't just change the rules or tweak the institutions. We have to undergo a complete cultural renewal and psychologically decolonize our own minds. We literally have to unlearn the reflex of submission and stop viewing the lion as the absolute king. I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Now that you have this analytical lens, and you know the triad of control and the grammar of domination, how will you identify and transform the illegitimate relations in your own life? Look at your classrooms, your friend groups, your workplaces. Which hierarchies are legitimate, and which ones are just waiting to be dismantled? Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.